Hello, my dear students of secondary grade. We have another episode today. We are going to speak about new chapter, new topic, which is sensitivity in living organisms. Actually, sensitivity is one of the vital processes that all living organisms carry out. Sensitivity or irritability. In sensitivity, we are going to study the sensitivity in plants, higher plants, and sensitivity in human. Sensitivity is one of the vital functions or vital processes of living organisms that carry out. Actually, all living organisms do it. Even plants or animals or even the microorganisms. All of them respond to stimuli. And the word stimulus is what affects the living organism to give certain response. Sensitivity is more obvious in animals than in plants because the animals can give the response by moving or by any action, and it is obvious, we can notice it easily, but the action of the plant or the response of the plant usually is not noticeable correctly, or we cannot notice it easily as what happens in animals. So let's start by sensitivity in plants. Sensitivity in plants includes response to touch and darkness and tropism. And these are the obvious response for the plants that we can notice easily and study them easily. We start by response to touch and darkness. Response to touch and darkness is very noticeable in a plant called mimosa plant. The mimosa plant gives immediate response if we touch it or during darkness. Let's see this movie and we can notice the response of this plant. This is the mimosa plant, as you see, and if we touch the leaflets of the plant, they close. As you notice that the leaf is composed of leaflets. This is compound leaf, composed of leaflets, and the leaflets are arranged in pairs. So when we touch it, the pairs of leaflets close in successive order. One pair by another pair and so on, until the whole leaf close and the branch hangs downwards, like this. Yes, it's very clear. So the movement in a mimosa plant occurs by two steps. The first step is giving the response to touch, and the second step is regains its original state or original position. When we study the structure of the mimosa plant, we find it is composed of this stem and the branch, and notice in the branch contains a swollen part at the base called pulvinus. So this swollen part is called pulvinus. and each branch is composed or contains 2 leaves, and each leaf is composed of leaflets. And you can notice in the drawing the secondary pulvini and tertiary pulvini. So the pulvinus is the swollen part at the base of each part of this leaf. And this pulvinus acts as a joint. Since the pulvinus is composed of cells or contains cells, the upper cells or the cells in the upper half of the pulvinus are less sensitive than the cells in the lower half. So the cells in the lower half are more sensitive. They are sensitive because they have the walls, the thin cell walls, and these cell walls are sensitive to the stimulus or the touch or darkness. What happens when we touch the leaflets? The cells in the lower half contains water and they are turgid, and during touch or when we touch it, when there is a stimulus, the water in these cells diffuse to the neighboring tissues, and these cells shrink. And then by shrinking the lower surface of each pulvinus, it causes the closing of the leaflets, and the stem hangs downwards as we saw in the video. But after we leave it for a few minutes, the cells regain their water and regain their turgidity and becomes filled with water and turgid again, and keeps the stem upwards again and the leaflets open. So this is the response to touch and darkness. And what happens during touch occurs also during darkness. So this is the first step or the first type of response in the plant, that is response to touch and darkness. The second type of response of the plant is tropism. What is tropism? Actually, the tropism is bending the plant parts, stem or root, to external stimuli. And these external stimuli like light, gravity, or humidity. So the tropism is the curvature or bending of the plant parts to different stimuli as light, humidity, and gravity. Let's start by the first type, which is phototropism. In phototropism, the plant stem bends towards light, like this picture of the seedlings that we grow in front of a window. So the light comes from one side. This causes the stem bends towards the light. If the light is distributed around the plant equally, the stem grows vertically upwards. But because the light comes from one direction, so the stem or the seedlings grow towards the light, like this in this picture. We can carry out an experiment to prove the curvature of the plant towards or against light. In this experiment, we bring a seedling and we place it in a cork disc on a surface of water, the surface of water of a glass beaker. And it is made of glass and not opaque substance, because we need to show the effect of light on the root. And we put this plant floating on water in the jar inside a box of wood or cartoon to be opaque, and we allow the light to enter the box from a hole in one side. after few days, 2 or 3 days, we can notice that the stem bends towards the light coming from the hole, and the root inside water bends away from light like this. This is why we call the stem positive phototropic and the root is negative phototropic. Positive phototropic means that the stem bends towards the light and the root bends away from light. This is why it is negative phototropic. What causes bending or curvature of the stem or the root towards or against the light? The explanation of this experiment is the curvature is due to the unequal growth of two sides in both the stem and the root. Unequal growth means one side grows fast or more than the other side. I want to explain it in details. Here, as you see, if light comes from one side and the plant which is placed on the cork, the stem bends towards light like this and the root bends away from light. So the plant grows, the stem grows towards the light like this. What causes the curvature? As you notice that this side grows more than this side. So the growth in the side away from light is much greater than the growth of the side towards the light. Okay, but what happens in the stem is the opposite in the root. The side which is facing light grows more than the side away from light. Okay, so the curvature occurs. Boyson-Johnson was a scientist that explained the curvature of the plant towards light, or explained in details the phototropism in plants. He used a plant called oat plant or avena, and when he grew the plant, the seeds, as you see in the picture, the seed grows and the root grows vertically downwards and the stem grows vertically upwards. The first part of the stem is called the plumule and grows upwards like this. This occurs when the light is equally distributed around the plant. But when he cut off the tip of this plumule, and he called it coleoptile, when he cut the tip of this coleoptile, the stem loses its ability to bend towards light if light comes from one direction. But the stem or the coleoptile restores its ability to bend towards light when he fixed again the tip that he removed. And these are the steps of the experiment done by Boyson-Johnson. This is the avena plant, and he allowed unidirectional illumination towards the stem or the plant, the seedling, and the seedling bends towards light like this. And when he cut the tip of the coleoptile, as you see in step number 1, the plant didn't bend towards light. And when he replaced again the tip using gelatin substance or gelatin disc, and this in the step number 2, the plant or the coleoptile bends again towards light. But if the tip is fixed by a mica sheet, and this mica sheet is a metal sheet, the coleoptile didn't bend towards light. That was the steps or the experiment done by Bison-Johnson. Bison-Johnson explained that experiment, and he said that the tip of coleoptile contains cells, and these cells synthesize the plant hormone for growth, and this plant hormone for growth is called auxins. And the most important one is called indole acetic acid, or IAA. So the indole acetic acid is the most important one of the auxins, the plant hormones, which causes the growth of the plant. So if light comes from different directions, all directions, the stem grows vertically without any curvature. But if the light comes from one direction, the stem or the coleoptile bends towards light, like this. Bison-Johnson explained that the auxins, which are formed in the upper cells or the cells in the tip of coleoptile, diffuse to the lower cells and cause the elongation of these cells. And these cells become longer than the cells in the side facing the light. This is why the growth in this side was accelerated or more than the growth in this side. And this, of course, causes the curvature towards light. Why? Because the auxins migrate in the side away from light. So we can notice that the auxins are present here in the side away from light, and concentration of auxins is greater in this side more than the other side. So high concentration of auxins in the side away from light causes rapid growth or accelerates the growth. But low concentration of auxins in the side facing light causes slow growth. So the cells in this side grows rapidly, and cells in the other side facing the light grows slowly. And this is what causes the growth. Back to our picture, you can notice in this picture, these are the cells in the side facing light, the lighted side, and in the dark side, which is the side away from light, as you see, the cells are bigger in size or longer than the other cells. This is why it grows rapidly or grows more than the side facing the light. Okay, what happens when he removed the tip of coleoptile? The tip contains the auxins or synthesizes the auxins, and the auxins are not present, so the lower cells did not grow, so no curvature occurs. But when he put again the tip on the coleoptile, fixing it with gelatin substance, the gelatin substance is permeable to these auxins. So the auxins diffuse to the lower cells and cause their curvature. But the mica sheet, no. The mica sheet is a metal and prevented the diffusion of the auxins that are synthesized in the tip and could not diffuse to the lower cells, affecting the growth. again, the conclusion of Bison-Johnson experiment, the tip of the coleoptile of oat plant, the Avena, synthesizes chemical substances called plant hormone for growth, which are auxins, and the most important one, indole acetic acid, that causes the curvature of the coleoptile or affecting the growth of the coleoptile. These auxins diffuse to the lower cells and affect their growth. The curvature is due to unequal distribution of auxins, as I explained to you. The side away from light contains high concentration, and the side facing light contains low concentration of the auxins. Auxins diffuse through the gelatin substance and affect the growth of the coleoptile, but not through the mica sheet, because it is a metal sheet. It is not permeable. Another scientist called Wendt scientist did an experiment to prove the experiment done by Bison-Johnson. His experiment was like this. He put the Avena plant in front of light, as in stage A, in front of light from one direction. He allowed it unidirectional illumination. Light comes from one direction, and this is the lighted side, and this is the dark side. So the auxins migrate or accumulate in the side away from light, or the dark side, more than the lighted side. He cut off the tip of coleoptile and placed it on 2 blocks of agar, similar blocks, and these blocks of agar are separated by metal sheet to prevent the mixing the concentration of the 2 sides. And he left this structure for hours until the auxins in each side diffuse to the agar blocks. After analyzing the amount of auxins in the 2 blocks, he found that the dark side contained 65% of the auxins, and the lighted side contains 35% only of the auxins. So that means the auxins migrate away from light. When he placed these 2 blocks of agar with different concentrations on the tip of coleoptile, the uncapitated coleoptile, he found that the coleoptile bends towards light. So he proved what Bison-Johnson carried out. Before studying the geotropism, let me explain something about the root. We said that the stem bends towards light, but the root bends away from light, like this. And still the light is coming from this side. As we said, that the auxins migrate away from light. So light caused the migration of auxins in the side away from it, in the dark side. And the side facing light contains low concentration of auxins. I want you, my dear students, to put or bear in mind 2 principles. The first one is a high concentration of auxin in the stem causes acceleration of the growth or rapid growth. But high concentration of auxins in the root causes slow growth or inhibits the growth. That means the action of auxins is opposite from stem and the root. What happens in the stem is the opposite in the root. And the second principle that you need to bear in mind, that the auxins migrate in the side away from light. It doesn't like light. light. It goes away from light. So in both stem and the leaf, the dark side contains high concentration of oxygen. Based on our principles, so the side away from light in the root inhibits the growth. So the growth in this side is slowed down, but the growth in the lighted side is more than the other side. So this is why the root goes away from light, but the stem goes towards light. Okay. The second type of tropism is geotropism. Geotropism is the response of plant parts towards or against gravity, due to the gravity. The response to the gravity occurs in the stem and in the root. Have a look to these pictures. The upper pictures show that a plant grows normally. We placed it into a vertical position. And after a few days, we can notice that the stem bends upwards. What about the root? Have a look to the lower picture. These are the seedling, and these seedlings germinate. And you notice that when we place the seeds in different positions, in each one the root bends towards gravity or downwards, like this, and the stem grows upwards. Okay, so we call the stem is negative geotropic, but the root is positive geotropic. Again, the plant parts bend towards or against the gravity. The stem is the stem is negative geotropic because it grows upwards against the gravity, but the root grows towards the gravity. The third part is hydrotropism. Third type of tropism is hydrotropism. Hydrotropism is the response of plant parts to humidity. In this experiment, we can notice the first trough labeled A, containing soil, and the moisture is distributed equally all over the soil. So water is everywhere, and by growing the seeds, the root grows vertically downward, and the stem grows vertically upward without any curvature. But if we place these seeds in another trough in stage B, or trough B, we put them into soil, dry soil, but the moisture is at the two sides of the trough. So the root bends towards the humidity, like this, in both seeds. But the stem grows away from humidity upwards, so we call the stem is negative hydrotropic, and the root is positive hydrotropic. And that was the sensitivity in plants. What about animals? Actually, what about human body? We are going to study sensitivity in man, in human body, and sensitivity in man is not involving only the nervous system, but also many other systems. The most important one, the endocrine glands and the muscular system and the skeletal system, to give the suitable response. Actually, my dear students, we are exposed to stimuli, internal or external stimuli. For internal stimuli, like feeling of thirst, hunger, or even pain or headache or stomachache or any other feeling from inside our bodies, but also we receive stimuli from the surrounding medium, and these stimuli we can receive by sensory organs, different sensory organs like eyes, ears, tongue, we taste by tongue, we smell by nose, and we touch by skin. So these are the 5 organs to receive external stimuli. The human body receives the external or internal stimuli and understand what are these stimuli and give the suitable response to them. So the nervous system and endocrine glands work together in the human body in a harmony together to control all body functions, all body systems, and to receive internal or external stimuli and give the suitable response to them. The nervous system in man includes many parts, or can be divided into many organs. The central nervous system, which includes brain and spinal cord. This central nervous system runs in the middle of the body. The brain and the spinal cord, the brain present in the skull, and the spinal cord runs into or through the hole in the vertebral column. The peripheral nervous system, and these are the nerves that come out from the brain, cranial nerves, or the nerves come out from the spinal cord, spinal nerves. They come out from brain or spinal cord in pairs to supply the 2 sides of the body with the nerves and receive and give suitable stimuli. The third part is called autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system includes nerves that control involuntary muscles and glands. Not all the organs can give the response voluntary. Some of them are involuntary muscles or glands and involuntary actions done by the muscles or the glands. Also, the nervous system can also be divided into 2 groups of organs, sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And this part we are not going to explain in details, but we delay the explanation of this part. Later on, we are going to explain it again. The unit of function and structure of the nervous system is the neuron. Neuron is the unit of function and structure of the nervous system. What is the neuron or the nerve cell? I think that you studied this part in primary stage or maybe in preparatory stage, but it's not new, yani. So we are going to draw the nerve cell or the neuron, and as you see, it is composed of 2 parts. The first part, the big part, is called the cyton, and this extension is called the axon. The cyton is the biggest part of the cell of the neuron, and the axon is the biggest extension of it. Now let us draw it with each other. The neuron starts with the cell body, which is called the cyton, and this big extension is called the axon. The cyton has branches called dendrites, like this, and a big nucleus in the middle, and the cytoplasm is granulated. This is cyton, and this is axon. And the cyton contains nucleus, and these are dendrites. And the granules here are called Nissl granules. The Nissl granules are said to be the stored food because the nerve cell needs high energy during its action, so it contains great number of Nissl granules. And Nissl granules are consumed during action. When the individual is working or under certain tension, the Nissl granules are consumed. So the number of Nissl granules indicates the state of the nervous system, whether it is in action or at rest. At rest, of course, it is greater in number than the body when it is in action. One of the extensions of the cytoplasm surrounded by membrane, this extension is called the axon, and the axon is surrounded by cells called Schwann cells. We draw it like this. And these Schwann cells surround the axon and secrete a fatty layer or fatty substance called myelin layer. We put the nucleus of the cells that are surrounding the axon. So these are Schwann cells, and Schwann cells secrete myelin layer or fatty layer. And the fatty layer is very important because when it is present, the speed of transmission of impulse across this axon or this fiber, sometimes we call it fiber, the nerve fiber. So the transmission of this of nerve impulse across the myelinated axon is much greater than the speed when the axon is non-myelinated. It reaches about 140 meters per second in case of myelinated axon, but it reaches about 12 meters per second in non-myelinated axon. Okay, so it's very important to be present, and we can ask when it is not present, when, in what case the myelinated layer is disappeared. This occurs when the person is taking some drugs or alcohol or even medicine, or is not in the normal state. So the myelin layer disappears. So this is the drawing of the nerve cell, and the last part is called terminal arborization. The terminal arborization contains synaptic button, so we put it like this. The transmission of impulse across the nerve cell occurs from one cell to another, from the cyton of the cell to its axon, and from the axon to the cyton of the next neuron, and then to its axon, and then to its terminal arborization, and goes to the next cyton like this in one direction. So it goes from the cyton, axon, next cyton and its axon, next cyton and its axon, and so on. So this is the drawing of the nerve cell. Okay, we have three types of nerve cell or neurons, and these three types are motor neuron, connector neuron, and sensory neuron. The motor neuron, let's start by sensory neuron. It receives stimuli from the sensory organs or the nerve endings and transmit the nerve impulses to the brain or spinal cord, and the motor neurons bring the nerve impulses from the brain and spinal cord towards the effort or the target organ. The target organ could be a gland or a muscle. What about the connector? The connector is present, connector neuron is present in a certain part of the spinal cord, and to connect the sensory with the motor neurons without referring to the brain. Actually, my dear students, we analyze the response to external or internal stimuli by three steps. The first step is to receive the stimulus, and this stimulus is received by nerve endings present in the sensory organs or inside our bodies, whatever the stimulus is, and that transmission of these stimuli, the nerve impulses, the sensory impulses, go through the nerve, the sensory nerve, which carries these stimuli to the brain or the spinal cord. In the brain, the centers responsible for these type of stimuli receives the nerve impulses and send the motor impulses through the motor neurons of the motor nerve. When we speak about nerves, we have to mention that each nerve is composed of types of certain type of neurons. The sensory nerve contains sensory cells. The motor nerve contains motor neurons, and the connector cells only present in the spinal cord. Now, my dear students, we have come to the end of our lesson today, and until we explain the rest of the sensory or nervous system in man, we prepare for it for next time, inshallah. And until we meet again, I hope you stay well, and goodbye.